So welcome to This Cycling Life. Today I'm joined by Michael Rogers, the Innovation Manager at the UCI. Mick's now 2 months into his role, so we thought it was a good time to have a catch up and talk about what he's been working on. So welcome to the show, Mick, and it'd be great to hear from you about how you've been spending your time.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. Thanks for having me back on. It's Happy New Year. Happy New Year, and I hope you had a peaceful Christmas and New Year period.
Absolutely. It was fun, Mick. Just chilling out with the family. We've got some mountain biking down in the Flemish Ardennes. So it was super. So tell us about your role, how it's all going.
Yeah, thanks. No, it's been a quite exciting time. I started, as you mentioned, in mid-November. It took me quite a bit of time to come up to speed with all the UCI systems, particularly the IT systems, understanding all the moving parts of the UCI and the various people and the right people to speak to get the things done. But saying that, we've had quite a bit of traction. I came in with quite a lot of excitement and a lot of focus. And, thanks to the guidance of my seniors, I was able to get in and start changing a few things around.
And what's been the most fun bit, Mick, or maybe even the most surprising part of working together with your new colleagues?
I guess the thing that surprised me much is just how many things the UCI cover within international cycling. I had no idea of how many details there are. When you're seeing from the rider perspective, so many things just seem simple, but they are, an iceberg in that sense. There's so much information and so many details that as a professional cyclist that I didn't know about that aren't viewable.
Excellent. And there have been some big announcements as of the 1st of January, some quite significant changes in terms of bike design. So maybe you can talk us through those and what that covers and what impact it will have on the sport.
Yeah, sure. You're absolutely right. On the 1st of January, a whole bunch of regulations or new regulations came into force, particularly around the use of bikes across multi-disciplines. So from now on, from January 1st, one frame set is now permitted to be used in several disciplines. So I could give you a vivid example. A road time trial bike now can be used in a road race, as long as you change, of course, the handlebars. That same frame set could be used later on in the cyclocross season. It can be used on the track as well. So quite a lot of changes that will help the everyday cyclists, be able to use one bike across those multiple disciplines.
I'll tell you what, my wife's going to be very happy about that because, at the moment I did a count, before our interview, and I think I've actually got 11 bikes right now, because of course I've got my mountain bike, I've got my two cyclocross bikes, I've got my TT bike, of course I've got my aero road bike, I've got my gravel bike, and of course then I've got my lightweight climbing bike. So I think my wife's going to be very happy with that. But Mick, does that mean that we're talking about modularity here, that maybe there'll be different modules you'll be able to attach to a base frame? How do you see that kind of
I think
engineering sense?
No, I think that transitions, I guess, into the second part of a new regulation that came in that allows bike manufacturers and bike designers a lot more creativity in their bike design. I don't know, Jamie, if you've heard of the 3-to-1 rule. So in essence, the 3-to-1 rule was, I think, created in the late 90s. And, when a famous period of bike design where we really started to see the famous Pinarello time trial bikes used by Jan Ullrich and Bjarne Riis and the Lotus bike used by Chris Boardman.
Absolutely. I've actually, as part of my collection that perhaps my wife doesn't know about, because that's hidden in the basement, my retro collection, I've actually got a giant MCR. Because in my day, I was racing in the 80s and 90s. The Pinarellos were a little bit beyond my budget, but I was a fan of Giant, and I have the MCR. So that's the full monocoque, frame, which was available before, of course, the rules were changed. But I'm sure we'll slot in some photos here to remind people about what those frames look like. So tell us about what that's going to mean for modern cycling.
Yeah. So as I was saying, the 3-to-1 rule was put into place in the late 90s to prevent those kind of bike designs. And that has stayed in force up until the 1st of January, where tubes are now allowed to have an 8-to-1 ratio, which should pave the way for a lot more creativity and a new canvas for the bike manufacturers to create new designs, more aerodynamic structures. The regulations also provide scope for smaller tube diameters. The minimum tube now, I think, is 1 centimeter. And as I said, does create that foundation for a whole bunch of new bike designs. The current weight status has not changed. It remains 6.8 kilos. But I'm sure before too far into the future that will come up for discussion as well.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we've got a forthcoming interview coming up with a Belgian company which is developing carbon fiber with metal filaments, which is much stronger than traditional carbon, which will, of course, will have some interesting consequences for frame weight as well. But Mick, I mean, do you see us returning to the kind of the Boardman type bikes, the monocoque? I mean, under the regulations, will the bike still require to have a front triangle, for example? Is that
correct?
Still part of it?
Yeah. So I guess those shapes, those futuristic shapes, I think are currently kind of still out of the question. And the motivation for that is the UCI wants everyone to have access to the latest bike designs. And also part of the regulations is that when any manufacturer does register a bike with the UCI, because there is quite a complex procedure in place to register frame sets, it's also required to be commercially available.
Yeah.
And until the UCI has evidence of that, we will not issue a certification for that bike to be used in UCI sanctioned events. So I think for the meantime, the far out designs, will also be in the future, and whether we go that direction, only the future will tell.
I just wish you told me this about a month ago, because I just bought myself, as you know, I sent you a photo. I just bought myself a very beautiful time trial bike with discs, and I guess what you're now telling me is that within about 6 months, that's kind of going to be out of date. But I'm heartbroken, Nick. I'm heartbroken.
Yeah,
you're my friend. You could have told me this a month ago, and then I would have delayed the purchase of my TT bike.
Don't tell your wife about the new regulation.
All right, that's true. But as you always tell me as well, it's kind of for small guys like me. It's I've got less wind to push anyway, so I guess the frame's less an advantage than the body size. But
exactly.
That's what I'll tell myself anyway.
Yeah, tell yourself that.
After sinking 5,000 on a new bike, I think that's what I'm going to tell myself. Okay, so that's all interesting. So I guess it's going to be a very exciting period in the next 12, 18 months, seeing what the frame manufacturers actually do, what the brands do in terms of coming to market with these innovative concepts. I guess what we have seen, Mick, already in the last, couple of years has been this emergence of the hybrid kind of designs, the gravel bikes, for example, which have many similarities to, say, a road bike overlap with a cross bike and have that kind of versatility. So I guess this is going to bring in more versatility and I guess for many of us reduce the number of bikes that we will need in our quiver, so to speak, for different events. Beyond the equipment side, I mean, obviously eSports is also a big topic for you. How's that been evolving? How have you been spending your time there?
Yeah, I'm really starting to get the nuts and bolts of esports within the UCI. Some really good news here. The UCI has now categorized esports as a discipline. Yep. So it'll be treated as road cycling, track cycling, mountain bike, cyclocross, etc., etc. So it's its own discipline now. After the UCI Esports World Championships held on Swift in December, and that's really given us a lot of motivation and really helped us understand the potential of the discipline. So we're very busy at the moment putting together some initial foundation of a potential UCI sanctioned esports calendar.
Wow, that's exciting. So as a dedicated sport, so we could see emerging very quickly, I guess, also dedicated teams that are purely focused on esports?
It would be something that I would anticipate, yes. The current regulation doesn't state or it doesn't kind of know the item eSports specific team. But under the kind of discipline, the esports discipline, you will see, particularly in the pros athletes, you will see Van der Poel does a traditional road season and then goes into a traditional cyclocross season. Some riders do the same with the track. What will be interesting to see if we see riders kind of skipping between the traditional road calendar and the esports calendar. So, but to answer your question directly, a specific esport team, there's currently no scope in the UCI regulation for that, but I anticipate that will change soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess of course we saw that evolution in the world of gaming more broadly in terms of online gaming. That of course now there are companies, there are teams established in the multiplayer gaming space. So again, a very interesting
with massive
to
reach. With massive reach, may I mention, Jamie? I mean, when you actually look at the traditional esport games, and I must state there that cycling is a little bit different because you still are required to physically push the pedals compared to interact with the game with a controller or a joystick or et cetera. But some of those numbers, particularly in the kind of traditional shoot 'em up games, I mean, they're just huge. I mean, millions and millions of people.
Yeah. Okay. And with regard to that, I mean, obviously we had the eSports World Championship, the Zwift UCI World Championship recently. How have your conversations been going with the different platforms in terms of how that will overlap and complement, work together with the calendar, for example, evolving? Is that likely to be on a single platform, across multiple platforms? Is there any consensus around that yet?
Yeah, across multiple platforms, Jamie. As the governing body, I mean, we're interested in providing everyone the same access, and we feel that multiple platforms should be part of a strong esports calendar. And I think that's for the greater of the cycling community, is to have multiple choice.
Great. Okay. Great, Michael. Well, and looking forward, I mean, what have you got planned in the next sort of 6 to 8 weeks as the spring calendar is soon approaching? How are you going to be spending your time?
Well, I guess I wear a couple of hats in that conversation under my role, UCI role. I'm managing the UCI technical unit, which of course is in charge of bikes and clothing regulation. So as the traditional season starts to come up and get going, we'll have quite a lot of questions from the teams and the federations. We've also got the Olympics, 2020 Olympics in 2021. I'll be present there, and we've got quite a lot of planning to do there as well. Not to mention also the development of the esports.
Good stuff. And Mick, you actually look like you're staying in pretty good shape, mate. So you're not, you're busy with your new job, but you're still finding time to do some exercise.
Yeah, I have.
And relax.
I mean, I've been very secretly popping up on most of the cycling esports platforms under a pseudonym, of course. And then I get out for the occasional run as well. Running for me is very time efficient. And in the summer, I'm very passionate about downhill mountain biking. So, but I leave that as a summer activity.
Yeah. Okay, Michael Rogers, thanks for the update. I'm sure we'll be back to you again in a couple of months' time to hear what else you're working on. Good luck for 2021. It's going to be another very, I guess, exciting but also unpredictable season that we've got ahead of us. But great to hear that you're making progress and already some pretty exciting announcements from the UCI. So if you've enjoyed this video, please do give us the thumbs up, of course, and do subscribe to the This Cycling Life YouTube channel. Michael Rogers, thanks again for your time.
Thank you, Jamie.